Good Tuesday morning and warm welcome to MarkkinointiKollektiivin Aamukahviseura. I am Nea Henttonen here from MarkkinointiKollektiivi and I'll be taking care of you in the chat today. You can go ahead and say your greetings there and tell me where are you joining this webinar this morning. I'm opening my lines from Pyhätunturi and it's sun is shining, so that's a nice thing for this morning. In a moment, my colleague Teemu Ilola will introduce today's guest speaker, Niels Skovmand from AudienceProject. He'll come up to the stage to explain us how cross-media measurements can help you target your budget more wisely and achieve more with less. Now I'll change the language briefly to Finnish as I'll send the greetings from our main partner. Ennen kuin mennään itse aiheeseen, niin kerron vielä terkkuja sulle meidän pääyhteistyökumppanilta, myynnin ja markkinoinnin ammattilaiset MMAlta. MMA vinkkaa, että heidän palkkapussi tulee taas 9. toukokuuta. Kyseessä on kaikille avoin ja maksuton myynnin ja markkinoinnin palkkoihin keskittyvä verkkotapahtuma, jossa osallistujat pääsee kuulemaan tuoreimman palkkatutkimuksen keskeisimpiä tuloksia. Laita linkin chattiin, mistä pääset ilmoittautumaan mukaan. With these words, I'll now give the stage to Teemu and Niels, and I'll be greeting you in the chat, so good morning and warm welcome Teemu and Niels.
Good morning. My name is Teemu Ilola from MarkkinointiKollektiivin, and it's good to be here with Niels this morning, and I'm trying to get the unmute button to work, but I can't, so Nea, if you can unmute Niels so he can actually talk to me, that would be nice. At least he's here and he's smiling, and I need to make a joke. I'm in Lempäälä and it's raining at the moment, and for some reason I still can't do this. Niels, can you unmute yourself? I think you need to go away from the presenter mode that you're already in. We tried to be smart about this. Here we go. Now it works. We're good. Good morning, Niels.
Good morning.
Sorry for the technical difficulties to everybody, and it is an early morning for Niels. How is it going at the moment?
It's going great, thank you. And you just had me worried a little bit that I would speak and nobody could hear what I was saying, but I guess that's not a problem anymore, so that's great.
Not a problem anymore, and I just actually wanted to test that if you're awake or not, and it seems
but that worked.
It worked for me as well. So before we dive into the topic of today of the cross-media measurement, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience? I'm sure most of people are familiar with you, perhaps, or not, but who is Niels and why are you here?
Well, I'm here as, among others, I'm leading up the Nordics in AudienceProject. I've been working with that company for 2.5 years, and been doing a lot of, let's say, business in the Finnish market in the last couple of years. And we have at least more than 100 brands being measured by the platform so far. So I'm here because you invited me to talk a little bit about something that is basically not our product, but some of the challenges that leads to the platform maybe being of interest to certain people.
Good that you're here. For the audience, there's going to be a few polls during the presentation. We're going to go through them after Niels' presentation. So there's one open now if you wanted to answer that, and there's going to be a couple more while we're at it. But Niels, the stage is yours. Go ahead and do your thing, and I'll be back here with you in about 15 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your time. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 things. First, as the slide says, the involvement of the media landscape and the consequences and challenges that brings to an advertiser, and secondly, how that challenge to advertisers actually plays out, so to say. And then third, how you can actually meet that challenge and get in control of what is working and maybe not working for you as an advertiser. So jumping into first topic. Now, Not so many years ago, before the emergence of the walled gardens, media was actually pretty simple. We had TV, print, and a little bit of audio, and then you could, run your ad in a TV or in a print paper or on a paper website. But that was basically it. Then this thing as is called the internet popped up, and then it became walled gardens, and then suddenly it exploded up in our hands and heads, and nowadays channels are basically just growing dramatically, and the consumption of that media among people is also developing constantly, and it's very different a little bit depending on the age group that you belong to. I can admit that I'm in a, well, I hate the word boomer generation, but apparently I am. So my media consumption is very different to what a 30-year-old or an 80-year-old or a 25-year-old would be, and that basically goes around. The fragmentation just means that we have so many options that we need to consider, and that brings, let's say, a lot of questions into play. Streaming voice on demand, meaning the CTV part, is also developing rapidly, especially now with smart TVs. The number of devices that people have are also growing, and we all know that on average in the West, polls actually say that we have between 6 and 7 devices at our hand, which is quite a lot. Not so many years ago, when people were watching YouTube, they actually did that on an iPad or tablet. And then they started to do it more and more on their smartphones, and nowadays it seems like almost half the consumption of YouTube actually is happening on the big screen, and that shift basically just happens over a period of maybe at least going to the big screen part. That's happening a little more than 12 months. So it's a quite dramatic change that one needs to take into consideration when one is planning and executing one's campaigns. Second or third, maybe, mixed marketing modeling is also becoming, let's say, more and more prevalent, simply because a lot of agencies now have matured in their data and analysis departments, trying to come up with answers to what is working and not working, which MMM is fantastic to do. The challenge is that when you get an answer on what's working and not working, and you're missing the why it's working or not working, you're still basically left with a couple of open questions that it would be nice to have an answer to. And then lastly, also, as it says, data beats opinion, meaning if you cannot document it, you can't really know whether it's true. So with the emergence of all those channels, the likes of Meta and Google and different kind of DSPs, they all come up with their own kind of siloed measurements, and Meta will say, yeah, we meet and reach so and so many people in the target group, and Google will do the same, and different kind of DSPs will do the same, and TikTok will do the same. And the thing is, that's very nice, but that's a siloed kind of picture. It doesn't really bring you who do you reach across the board, because quite honestly, more than 80% of all the campaigns that are running from advertisers are run on 3 channels or more. So if you reach the same people over and over again, maybe even several times on the same kind of channel, but on different kind of devices, you cannot really add the numbers together. So you don't really know how many people you actually reached. Second or third, maybe, it's quite important that when one is trying to understand what is happening, that we always look at why are we collecting the data, and what is it that this data is supposed to help us understand. Because quite frankly, a lot of the companies that I'm talking to, they kind of forget the last part. So they look a lot of spend a lot of time looking at the data, but they forget what story the data should actually tell them, which actually very often leads to, let's say, wrong kind of decisions or wrong kind of interpretations of the data. So that's pretty important. Then when you have these different kind of measures from different kind of channels, you will always in the marketing be met with something of you need to do more with less. There's some sort of return on investment hitting everybody nowadays, and you need to make the budget work. And we have seen, I've talked to CMOs basically telling me that now they spend so much money on developing the creative that they hardly have any budget left to actually execute and run the campaign. I've also heard the other side, that they basically spend as little as possible developing creatives, and then they want to buy, let's say, 25 million impressions on a given channel, but they are basically afraid that it's not really working because they are not satisfied with the creative. So that's a balance that you need to sort out. And once you sorted it out, there's a pretty important question that one needs to ask oneself, and that is, how many impressions do you actually need, and what is a quality impression, and are the impressions on a different kind of challenge, do they actually work for you in the same kind of manner, depending on what you want to achieve with that particular campaign. So as it says, you can't really have these isolated kind of measurement. You cannot really trust on just one single source. What you need to understand is, in order to really see what happens with your campaigns, you need different kind of let's say measurements, and you need to, as I said before, you need to make sure that you understand which data you're looking at, how you got that data, and what story that data actually tells. And then once you do that, and you start to want to make some changes based on the story that the data tells you, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because improving is a constant journey. And when you change things, there's also things in the surroundings that's going to change at the same time. So you might not necessarily get the result right with the first try. So you need to try again and have it try again, which means that you need to have this culture of continuous learning. You need to basically understand and be willing to live with the fact that when you grow and make changes, when you do stuff differently, you get different kind of results. But the market is also moving. New channels are popping up. You need to consider whether you need to move budget from some of the old stuff that you've done into new stuff, or whether it doesn't really make sense to leverage the new stuff yet, because maybe it doesn't really meet your target group, or maybe it's not mature enough, etc. So in essence, when we talk about this media landscape, it's a lot about understanding, not working in silos, trying to get a holistic view of things. Make sure, as it says on the right side, that with digital impressions, you need more nuance to it, because maybe an impression is maybe not the same impression as it is on another channel. And then make sure that you make segmentation in your analytics, so that you really get to understand all the details and be able also to get an answer to, like I said with the MMM, what is working and not working, but why is it working or not working? That's the important part, because that's the thing that you need to know in order to make a change. So when we then move into the advertiser challenge, this is let's say a very rough summary of a situation, no matter whether you're selling a service or a product. This is the big question. You have something to sell. You know your target group. You know everything is prepared, and then you need to run it somewhere. And as we talked about, the involvement of all those channels just keeps popping up. So you need to understand of this budget, how many percentages am I supposed to do on one channel versus another channel? I know in Finland, linear TV is still quite a big number, and even maybe bigger than in some of the other Nordic areas, and certainly bigger than in many of the, let's say, Southern European countries as we see it. But still, I've seen a lot of campaign results in Finland where people are actually changing between TV and digital and are, getting fantastic results out of this. And you need to take a decision on the budget spread that you are sitting with as an advertiser, because you probably can't afford. I never heard anybody who say, "Yeah, I can spend as much money as I will." So with that limitation, decisions needs to be taken. And when this campaign, you take the decision, you execute your campaign, and then, you want to understand who is my campaign reaching, how many in the target group, and how many am I reaching outside my target group, because that's basically a waste of money, right? And also, how often do I actually reach them? Some sort of frequency. Some people are working with, let's say, a frequency target. Some are not, but you have a gut feeling quite often on the frequency that you want to achieve. And then at the end, you also want to understand, like we spoke about on the former slide. So how does these channels actually contribute to that reach and frequency? And what might be the most cost-effective way to run your campaign, simply in order to make sure that you understand how can you reach more people with maybe a lesser budget. So one way of getting into control of that challenge is actually to start doing a digital cross-channel measurement that can give you answers to some of the things, meaning how many people in your target group that you actually reach, what's the frequency, average frequency of that, what's the, let's say, incremental reach and total reach of some of the major channels I used, how does it build up over time, as you see on the lower right side, so that you can understand how each of the channels actually contribute in campaigns during the duration, because sometimes you will actually learn that at a certain point, the channel is actually saturated, and just pouring more money into it doesn't actually build any kind of reach. But you don't know that if you don't know that. Another thing that you can, for instance, look into is the cost efficiency of these different kind of channels, because if you're in a situation where you're doing a campaign, lasting, let's say, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or you have an always on, sometimes you get, a budget cut, or you get some extra kind of budget, and simply by looking into the analysis of the performance of the different kind of channels, you can immediately see if you need to cut, okay, so where am I getting the least bang for the buck, or where do I get the most bang for the buck when it comes to, let's say, the reach side of it, because, the performance of those channels is something that you can basically just look at, in a graph like this, and then you know exactly what to do. And then you can even, take that when you're doing your procurement negotiations, either directly yourself or via the agency, and simply say, I'm seeing this kind of situation. This is not satisfactory to us, so we want to make changes because the cost of this channel is basically too high to compare to the reach I'm getting, for instance. So that's one way of doing it, and that was basically leading me to the final slide. So some of the basic questions that you could get answers to, and the benefits that you will get from doing that. And of course, there's a lot more questions that you can get answers to. There's a lot more benefits that you can get out of that as well. And actually making a reference to the first kind of slides, understanding the why it's not working, and understanding how to leverage, the development of the media landscape, and make sure that you can take into consideration when new things are popping up. When are you going to take that into consideration for your campaigns, or maybe not? Might be some of the most important part not mentioned on this slide. And that was basically it.
Thank you.
Okay, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here with you. Thank you for that. That was a lot of information in a short period of time. So thanks for that. Would you like, Niels, to take a look at some of the polls we asked from the people and comment on how do you see these results?
Yes, of course. Do you want me to? Do you want to point me into a specific direction? Anything that you want me to?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The first one we asked was, how often do you receive measurements with unique humans net reach of your digital multi-channel campaigns? And it seems like 40% of people said never.
Okay.
A few people said once a year. Some people said now and then there is 23% of people who said almost every campaign. How do you see these results?
Well, I see them as maybe actually a pretty good representation of what I'm also seeing when I'm talking to different kind of CMOs out there. And that's not only in Finland, that's basically across the board in Nordics and in Southern Europe. So some companies are working quite tightly with agencies that are also working with us and who are being recommended by those agencies to actually do the kind of measurement that I was talking about before, in order to be able to meet the challenges that you see as an advertiser. But in order to be intrigued or be curious to understand, the story behind the data that I was talking about, you actually need to know that it's possible to do so, right? And quite frankly, even though we are maybe the biggest in the market in Europe, we are still a Danish kind of small company. And, we are doing everything we can, including participating today. And thanks for the invitation. By the way, I forgot to say that, so that's my bad. Until people understand that they actually have a possibility to getting answers to some of those questions, and why it's important to have those questions answered, you don't really have a chance to start doing this. So I would maybe encourage the people that are never doing this, or only doing it, let's say once a year, to reach out to my Finnish country manager and have a talk with him. He's been in the industry for many, many years, and could probably tell you some of the advantages that you can get. And pretty often it's a pretty good business case doing so.
Thanks for that. And Juha's contact details are actually already in the chat if anybody wants to speak to him.
Okay.
Him as well. There were a couple of questions that we got before the webinar as well that I'd like you to kind of comment on. The first one was, which I think was very interesting, is how to choose metrics for global campaigns when different markets are in different maturity stages. Easy first question for you. Go ahead.
That's actually a very, very good question. My immediate answer to this is, I would refer that to the strategists and analytics people of the agency that you are working with, because that is, first of all, it's not a 2-minute answer question. Secondly, I think, depending on industry and product/service that you're selling and where you want to bring it to market, there's a lot of different things that you need to take into consideration. So I would be ignorant and stupid to try to answer. Sorry.
Thanks for being honest as well.
Yeah,
Mika is actually asking in the chat as well, are there any known channels that don't provide good measurements anymore? In other words, do everyone provide good measurements already?
I'm not sure I understand the question. If there are any channels that are not providing measurement.
Yeah, I guess the question is, if I'm interpreting it correctly, I guess the question is, do all media channels provide good data or good measurement already?
Well, now you're basically referring to quality, and I'd say the short answer, because this is also kind of a complex question, but the short answer is, as I was saying, you can get isolated measurements from almost any channel, and if you're going, on the open web and you advertise on a newspaper's website, etc., they'll also say, yeah, we got first-party data of the subscribers of the newspaper, blah blah blah. But the thing is, what we can see as a third-party verified measurement partner is that anytime we start measuring a channel, we always get different results from whatever Google or Meta or any kind of newspaper or any kind of TV station, or the Netflixes and the HBOs and so on of this world, and that's basically because they are there to boost the inventory. They want to pump up the numbers, and quite often they get reach numbers that are far bigger than that part of the population in any given market, also in Finland. So as I would say, yes, you can probably get numbers from all channels, but I wouldn't trust them. And secondly, as you get them in isolation, you don't really get an understanding of who you're reaching and how many times, because the frequency just disappears, and you're basically back to square one.
Thanks for that. One more question I'd like you to comment on is that we also got before the webinar is how to measure the impact of digital media on business results for an FMCG brand. So one that's only selling products through retailers. Yeah,
and that's I would say that's basically the bread and butter of the platform. So I would say still go to you here, but the thing is, we are working through consented measurement panels in every country where we operate. So that means, and we have direct integrations to all the walled gardens, and we can measure any kind of digital channel, which means that once you as an FMCG advertiser starts advertising, across multiple different kind of channels, if you subscribe to the platform that I represent, that platform will actually pick up all the impressions that is generated out there, and then it will feed back either during campaign or end of campaign, or both during and end of campaign, a lot of different kind of details to age and gender, social demographics, people in household, etc., a little bit depending on the answers that you're looking for. And showing you the dashboards that I demonstrated in a slide before, and a lot of other details. And based upon that, you will actually see the success of that particular campaign. You will see how many people in your target group that you are reaching. You will also understand how many people you are reaching outside the target group, and you will see the channel efficiency, the cost efficiency, and all this kind of details that allows you to understand what kind of changes should I make to my budget in order to achieve more with less money? And whether that's retail or whether that's auto or banking, insurance, whatever, it's the same kind of measurement, it's the same kind of methodology, it's the same thing happening. As long as you're within the business to consumer part, we control it all.
I have a feeling that was a question you wanted to answer, because you lit up there when you were answering it. So thanks for that.
No, but it is our bread and butter, yeah. So yeah. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for that. Hey, Nea, you're back.
Hello. Yes, I'm here, and I want to thank you, Niels, for the inspiring morning. There are great tips and something you can take to your everyday work. So that's super great. I'm here telling you about next week's Aamukahviseura's agenda. We will switch back to Finnish, so I'll represent that in the same language as well. So Ensi viikolla Aamukahviseurassa saadaan vieraaksi Juho Kuusijärvi Arvopartnersilta. Ja hän tulee kertoa meille sivustouudistuksista. Eli olit sitten suunnittelemassa ensimmäistä sivustouudistusta tai haluat ehkä ymmärtää paremmin, että miten projekti toteutetaan riskejä minimoiden, niin kannattaa tulla paikalla, luvassa on käytännönläheistä asiantuntemusta.
I'm not going to ask Niels for you to comment on that, but I am going to ask you to, how would you like to send the audience to continue their day? What would be your ending sentence?
My ending sentence would be that I hope all of you will, see the sun as Nia said that she was having, and get rid of the rain that you said you were having, and just have a fantastic Tuesday. I hope you had a good morning. Continue doing that.
Thanks for that. Remember to give us feedback, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.